In today's lesson, we're going to be doing more drawing. I've been doing a lot of drawing in these beginning lessons because I think drawing is so important. When you become good enough and practiced enough in your drawing, you can draw with your brush. You don't always have to do it with a pencil. In fact, I was talking to an artist yesterday who draws with her sewing machine, which is really different. She does textile art and a different kind of thing to do, but you don't always have to draw with a pencil. We will talk about the use again of the colored pastel pencils, which are really fantastic to work with. If you don't have any, I really highly recommend that you get some, because the experience of blending and adding and layering is a great technique to learn while you're learning to draw and polish your techniques of sketching and drawing. This is a good time to also learn the application of color with pencil, either just regular colored pencil or pastel pencil. But we will be using the pastels today. I've talked about those before. I'll show them to you again if you want to go get some. They aren't very expensive. You can find them easily in Hobby Lobby. Again, no endorsements. I just happen to buy a lot of things in Hobby Lobby. We'll get with our lesson, and hopefully you have a good time and learn something new. Today we're going to be drawing these lemons I told you about. I am working from a photograph. It's nice to use the real thing if you have it. I just don't have fresh lemons right now. But I'm using again, and we've talked about these before, these pastel colored pencils. Masters Touch brand. Again, they came from Hobby Lobby. The price says $44.99. I didn't pay that. I paid like $25 for them. There are 48. That's a lot. That's as many colors as you would ever need. And they're beautiful. They're woodless pencils. They're all pastel. We're using those. These are the colors that I'm going to be using. The lemons are yellow. I'm going to be using this yellow and a yellow ochre for a little bit darker. This is actually brown. Doesn't look like it here, but it is. And for a little reflected light, the orange. It's going to have a blue bowl underneath it, so I have two blues I'm going to be working with here, and maybe a little black in the shadow, and a little white highlight on the lemon. I always keep a piece of scrap paper, the same that I'm working on, as a tester, in case I need to test the color. And I will be sketching with a white charcoal pencil. This can be erased if you need to. This is an 8 by 10 piece of paper. I'm working with it vertically. When I'm looking at this paper, I'm imagining the vase is a lot bigger than the paper. I'm not going to show all of the edges, but it's pretty much centered. I'm going to put the corners of the bowl in now. I kind of imaginary line it so I get it right. You can see. Probably more of an oval bowl than a round one. There you have the container for these lemons. Now it's going to go down a little bit, but I'm not going to draw the bottom because the lemons are going to be there. I'm going to make the lemons rather large. We're studying here several things that we're looking at. Overlap is one of them. That means we have one in front of the other because they're stacked up on each other. I'm going to start with a lemon right here. If you need to practice drawing a lemon shape, do that by all means before you start something like this. You can see they're kind of torpedo shaped with that little end where the blossom was on the end. And one of these lemons is going to be cut, so I'm going to draw that in right now, and I don't want it in the middle. Here's the center. You notice this is a little off center. I think I'm going to put it like right here, so we have a cut lemon. We will see that part, and this may be the other half, but it isn't lying flat. So we won't see all of that. You see part of it. Now these are on top. We have lemons underneath. I'm going to put another lemon right here. Now we're going to draw in the other lemons. Keep in mind as you are drawing these and placing them, we're looking down from the top. Our perspective is from the top. We're drawing what's on top first. Naturally, these lemons are going to be on top of what's underneath. And you may not see all of them, such as this one. It's a pretty good sized lemon. And it's partially underneath this cut piece. And we're going to have it go into that other lemon there. Let's add another lemon here, a partial one. And if you remember, this is one of those principles of overlap that we're looking at here big time. Do a portion of one here. Right now you're creating actually the composition. I don't really have a photograph that shows me how to do this part. I'm creating this composition as I go. You can see we're going to get quite a few. I'm going to put another whole lemon here. And as I said in the beginning, if you do something you don't like or something that needs removed, and I'll show you here in just a minute, this white charcoal pencil is erasable. You can take an eraser and take it out. Where we have this overlap, we don't want a transparent lemon. So you can see how clean that is. Takes it right out. Need to do it here as well. Here's the vase. I think I'm going to add one up here, and that may be about it. Let's go this way with it. The lemons underneath, of course, don't need as much drawing as the lemons did on top, obviously. Maybe one underneath here. There we have our composition pretty well. What I'm going to do now is take this brightest yellow that I have and do some fill in. And you can go right to the edge. I'm just covering this lightly right now because I'm going to be adding other colors over top in different places. So I'm not working on the tip. I have this on its side. And it looks pretty rough right now, but we're going to blend that out. We're going to do each lemon that way. Of course, the lemons that are underneath are not going to be quite as bright and beautiful as these on top because they're shadowed. I'm rotating my pencil as I work. Whenever you work on the side of a pencil, you want to rotate it, otherwise you get a flat side. But right now, all the lemons are going to be the same color. We'll work on the difference of color after we get something on the paper to work with. If you see that the shape needs to be changed, you can do it. Kind of blends in with the white charcoal, no problem. That's why I don't use a lead pencil instead. White charcoal on black paper or brown paper works better. Even though these are the same color, you can tell where they are because of the edges. You won't lose the white line totally unless you want to. Then you can take it out if you want to. And when we get these blended, they're going to look kind of pale, but we can always go back. That's the beauty of pastel. You can go back and add. This is layering. Add more color to the top. Change the color, which we will in some places. But this is the base color. Now this is the cut. So I'm just going to outline very lightly here the edge, because we will see some of that rind. So just outline that one. That one's going to have a lot of lighter parts to it because it's cut. So even just putting the color on at random gives some really nice effects with that black paper underneath. It gives a kind of a shadowy effect that's really kind of nice. You can almost work with that in mind, leaving that some of that texture in some areas, which we may do that. Lemons are like eggs. They have such beautiful shapes. Make that one a little larger on that side. Okay. This is the cut edge. On the other side, I'm going to actually use the tip to define that. Or we could here too. So far we have line. We started with line with the pencil sketch, charcoal pencil sketch, and we created overlap right away. You're thinking about perspective. This is a little bit different perspective, looking down from the top. We're starting to work and thinking about color. You don't always have to jog your memory about the elements and all the principles and everything you're using, but it's a good idea when you're learning to kind of think about it somewhat. Okay, what have I used? Think about what you've used. So there, it didn't take long. We have some of the nice base color. Now I'm going to go in with this darker color, kind of a yellow ochre, kind of a pretty color here. And I'm going to put a little bit of darker yellow on these that are down here, shadowed beneath those other lemons. And I'm also going to add a little bit of this color to the lemons that are on top. If you lose a line, kind of like I did right there, don't worry, we can go back, put that back. It was So right now we're actually working on form. We're working to build form on these lemons. You can see you don't have to add very much for it to change the way it looks. Notice I'm staying away from the highlighted areas, what they call the touch point. So this is a 3D object, right? It comes this way. It sticks up out the paper. So the touch point is the point that's closest to you where you could actually touch. That's going to be the lightest, brightest color. So I'm staying away from that on each one, if you'll notice. You want to kind of preserve that space there for that bright color. I haven't really identified the light source, but I think the light source, the way this is beginning to feel, is the top or maybe just a little bit on this direction. You can pull that and push that whichever way you like as you work, but it's probably a good idea to establish it pretty quickly so your shadows are in the right place. These aren't much of a shadow, but it's changing the color. I'm going to take this piece that actually looks a little brown, and it's kind of an odd color. Some of this has a little darkness on it, so we're going to work on molding it, forming it a little bit more. Darkening some areas of this, not a lot, because we don't want to lose the luminosity. Lemons are a beautiful color, and they never get really dark, even in shadow. Just the color changes more or less. We want this one to be a little bit darker than what's in front of it, so there's a difference. You can see that this is definitely behind everything. Forming and shadowing here at the same time. When I'm getting towards that white edge, I am bending down a little bit on the tip to take some of that color off on that white edge to kind of alleviate some of that harshness. I'm going to go now with a Q-tip and blend a little bit. You don't want to do a lot because you're going to lose it. It dyes into the paper really easily. So I'm going to start with the lightest color. And it's okay to let some of that black show through. Like we talked about, that black, we're working on the darkest tone paper we can, being black. It's okay to let it work for you. That's why we're using the toned paper. And if it isn't dark enough for you, you can always go and add black to it. I'm going to go back with the bright yellow. And this time I probably will be using this tip because I want to get some of that. Now it's not going to be real bright because of the color paper we're working on. In fact, the black kind of has a tendency to turn the yellow a little bit greenish. You can go back and forth and use your tip, and you can actually get a little bit of texture into the lemon skin with that by random little movements like this. It breaks up the texture of the paper. And because lemons are not completely smooth, they have a little bit of a texture. Then I'm going to take my white, and the lemon that's cut has a little white, kind of a pithy center here. It's okay, you don't have to make it really solid. And right there under the skin, under the peel, is also very white. So take that around the edge. Doesn't have to be perfect because they certainly aren't. We're going to take, now we're going to make some segments. Remember that lemons are like oranges, they have segments. And you don't see it too much on this one, but you do somewhat. So we're going to put a little white line under the rim of that peel, you will see some of it, not all of it. Some of the white blends back in, so it's kind of indiscriminate. It's the texture of the lemon itself. All the lines go to the center. And I don't want to lose those segment lines. We need to make sure that those are clear. I'm going to go back with some of this yellow. So you can see that you can use again the paper texture, the paper color underneath to help create some of the depth of these segments. And certainly use this paper, that's why we're using it. This side a little bit. Now if this has been cut any amount of time, it's going to be kind of turning. I'm going to add just a little bit of orange here and there to this, so it darkens around the rim. We don't want it to look like an orange, but if it's been, like I said, if it's been cut for a while, this darkens. Do a little bit here. I'm going to take this same color and we're going to give the lemons some highlight, some reflected light off of this bowl with this orange color. Don't be afraid to put the color on. We're not going to blend this in, we're just going to leave it like it is. Take this white and do a little, because we're going to go back and do some white on them too. So, but it's not showing up enough, so I'm going to add a little white to this edge. It's okay to do that. Same way with here. Not happy with that. We need to make sure that it stands out from what it's above. Okay. This also helps create the form of the fruit, and it's a reflection off the plate, even though the plate's going to be a different color. I've seen lemons painted with all kinds of colors, pink, violet, blue. So you don't have to stick to the color, the actual color of the fruit. I mean, be creative. You can create the feel of your fruit however you want. Another thing that will help this too is when we get the color behind these on the plate. It will make them stand out a little more. Okay. Now this plate is like a really deep blue, but it's going to have some highlights. But I need to come back and do something. I'm not quite through with these lemons yet. I'm going to put some little highlights with this white here and there. Again, it brings out the texture of the lemon. Just little random marks here and there. Because their skin is not real smooth, but it's a little bit shiny. And I don't know if that's, well, no, I don't think, I was going to say I don't know if that's a wax they put on them for marketing. But I don't think so, because I think I've seen lemons on the tree like that. It's okay to add a little white on that edge to make it stand out a little more. We're going to pick up the yellow and the white. That's okay, we can clean it. Kind of like that better. And we'll still add the little white marks for the texture.
Your battery's starting to flash. It's not right yet, but it is flashing.
So it's actually a lot of work because these pastels fight each other. So you have to keep applying and keep applying, but that's okay, it works. It wants to blend into itself. A little bit right there. So you can see the yellow picked up on the white, but that's no problem. You just I use paper napkins and clean your pastel off. Make sure, because when you start on another piece, you sure don't want that yellow on there. It may not be at all what you want, so make sure that it's clean. I'm going to take the turquoise blue, and right along the edge of this plate, here's the edge of the paper. I'm going to give it a light edge. I'm going to drag that down a bit. So these are almost complements, not quite, because yellow's complement is violet, but we're working in the blues, but at least we have here cool and warm colors too on the color wheel. They always complement each other, even though they aren't the real complements. working a little backwards here on this area up here. I'm going to take my trusty Q-tip and work some of this down into that so we have a gradual blending. We want the bowl to look like it goes down behind the lemons. I'm not blending all the way from the edge. I want to leave that edge bright. But I do need to go up and drag some of that down. You can see I got a little bit of the yellow on the black paper here. That's okay, we can just work it in. It's going to be a different color right underneath the yellow.
Go.
I'm still dragging this turquoise down in, and I think I know what I need to do as well. Maybe throw a little turquoise in the bottom, like the bottom would catch a little bit of highlight. So I probably will want to drag some of this up. Where I drug the edge down, this is going to be dragged up. So here. Okay, that should do it. It's reluctant to stick here in that one spot. And I don't know if it's a little glitch in the paper there. It must be. Okay, now I'm going to drag some of this up. Leave it pretty bright right on the bottom edge. So you can see how it's giving form to the edge of this bowl. Right. Add a little bit more right here. In fact, I could go up a little bit further all the way around, I think. Some of this is just, tried and true as you work. You see, okay, I need to do more of this. I need to add more of that. And we all do that. This is the first time I've done a piece quite like this, so I'm learning with you. And it's the medium that's different and the paper. Sometimes the paper in manufacturing develops a little area where I don't know where the fibers are not just right or something, and they resist sometimes even the pencil. You just work with it. Okay, let's drag some of this up now. Try to get this blended. It's better. So this is a very dark glass bowl. I actually have one that's like this. that my buddy gave to me for my birthday one year. I think it was my birthday. Very beautiful handmade blue bowl. It's gorgeous. I think I'm going to add even more. So the more I do this, the better I like it. So let's put some more. Looks pretty nice right in there. Now you can actually see the edge of the paper, whereas before you couldn't very well, but the paper I'm working on top of is black. And I usually anchor my piece of paper. The reason I do that is for a couple of reasons. Number one reason is so it doesn't move, change location for the camera, because it will. If it moves the slightest little bit off center, then the camera's in a different place. The other reason is so it's not moving around on you while you work. Okay, a little more blending. I'm going to take this darker blue and I'm going to put it in the bottom here. The bowl I have is actually darker on the bottom than it is on the rim. It's similar, very similar to this. Be careful, you don't want to go too much around your lemons. So I'm kind of working with the tip of the pencil here, so I don't, the tip and the side. When I'm shading like this, I'm using the side. When I get into a very small area like this, I'm using the tip. And by doing this, you're making some beautiful divisions of space. It's very unpredictable. Delineates the shape of the lemons. I'm going to add a little bit of darker blue right in here. You know, where that turquoise, it actually looks lighter, but it's not. That's the turquoise that's changing it. Notice when we started this thing from the beginning, I drew the outline of the bowl first. Didn't do the bottom yet because I had things that went on top of it. Drew the lemons that were on top first because of overlap. When I colored, I colored the lemons first and then went to the bowl. Take the Q-tip, do a bit of blending. think I'm going to try one of two things here. I'm going to start first with the white charcoal, see if I can get a shine on the edge of this bowl. The charcoal is a little bit different material, of course, than the pastel, so sometimes it works better for the highlighting than the pastel itself. I'm going to add a little more because I think that's the light source on that side. You see something here. This even works better on that. So let's go back and add a little bit more white here and there. As I said, sometimes experimenting as you work, you discover things. Okay, now I'm going to take a black pencil, colored pencil, and I'm going to do some outlining. With this you can do a little bit of shading, a little bit of adding to the texture. I'm going to open out a napkin here to lay my hand on, because if I don't, I will be moving the pastel around with my hand, so it's probably a good idea to protect that. As you can see, black pencil works beautifully over the pastel, adds just enough. Helps delineate this. Even add a little bit of texture and break up some of these spaces on the inside of this too. Do a little shadowing with your pencil very carefully. So this is actually would be a mixed media piece now. It was mixed media the minute I started adding the pencil. Of course, you remember media. Medium is what you're working in. Media is plural of those things. So in this case, we have colored pencil and pastel pencils. You can get a little bit more detailing with your lemons with this pencil, and then it makes a difference. This piece is not something that looks classical, so to speak, in technique. It's more or less a kind of a modern style drawing. Anytime you have a piece of fruit or a vegetable or something in your hand, take time to study it. Look at it. Really look at what's going on with, for instance, with the little tips here. See what happens. Is there any kind of indentation in the bottom? Really study. That's how you learn, is looking at everything you pick up. And everybody has vegetables and fruits at home in their drawer, in their fridge. At least more or less for a good balanced diet. See if I can add a little bit more orange. I think I'm going to go to a more orange color. So grab one here. Need something a little more fluorescent. See if I can pick up this color. The colors in this kind of remind me of Van Gogh, because he would have liked these colors. Yeah, this makes a difference. He used a lot of the yellows and blues and oranges together on his florals and still lifes, and even in his landscapes. Went a little crazy there over the edge. So you can go back with the blue and just cover that. Easy to fix. This gives us a little more luminescence. Again, that build up of color, that's what you have to do with pastels. And even colored pencils, especially colored pencils when you're working with those. So if I would like some feedback, so if you're working these, give me some feedback about, is the speed good for you? Do you have time to work? I know you can turn these off and study what we're doing and work on yours and then go a little bit more. That's the beauty of a video, but I would indeed appreciate some feedback about the timing and the speed, and is it okay for you? Is it working for you? Let me know. Okay. Gonna hit these highlights a little bit more right here. A little backwards for me to work in that corner since I'm left-handed. Okay, I think that about does it. Mixed media, I outlined with a black pencil. Pastel colored, woodless colored pencils. They're the oil-free kind, so it's soft pastel, and they work beautifully. Remember to sign your work, and I'm going to do it in pencil. I see something I want to do. I'm going to take this black pastel. Can you see here? I've got this little funny things going on the edge. We can go over that in black pastel and actually deepen that paper so it's consistent. This is a little bit different color than the paper. That's okay. Let the paper work for you. Just to finish that edge.
You're at over 50 minutes, just so you know.
One more corner and we will call this good. Except for the signature. Okay, find a place that's appropriate. Sign it, and it's yours. Good luck. Don't forget to give me some feedback. Send pictures of your work. Let me see how it worked for you. And I hope you enjoyed this little lemon study.